It was friggin' late. Diana wasn't exactly sure how late, but she was damn sure it was too late for anyone to be calling. She hoped it was Mar's phone anyways. She just covered her face with a pillow and said thank you loudly when the call finally stopped after the 5th ring. She had just gotten comfortable when the damn bell rang again. Damn it, she screamed, opening her eyes to realize Martin wasn't in bed with her. She glanced at the clock, 3:37 a.m. She grabbed her phone from the bedside table and was wondering why her husband wasn't there. He was there when they went to bed a few hours ago. Yes, hello, she muttered into the phone. Is this Diana Miller? Yes, that's me. Who is this? Are you Martin Miller's wife? Yes, for God's sake, yes. Who is this? Mrs. Miller, this is the emergency room at Northtown Medical Center. Your husband was brought in about an hour ago and we had your contact information from the incident a year ago. He got into a car. Hey, there's been an accident, can you come over right now? Oh my God, is he okay? I can't talk about his condition over the phone, ma'am. Please come. Yes, sure, I'll be there as soon as I can. She ran upstairs where her daughter was sleeping. Dallas, named after the city where she was conceived, went to a local university but lived at home to save money. She liked living in the dorms her freshman year, but as she got older she realized that living close to campus wouldn't be good for her studies. Dee, wake up. Nothing. Dee, wake up this time, she said, shaking her. Hey, wake up Dallas. Your old man got into a wreck and he's in the ER. Get your butt out of bed, we gotta go. Dallas groggily sat up and tried to focus her blurry eyes in the dimly lit room. She quickly got up, threw on a nightgown, and didn't even realize she was standing butt naked in front of her mom. Diana, too preoccupied with picking out clothes for Dallas, didn't even notice. Finally dressed, the two of them headed out. Dallas rushed to the hospital and started firing questions at her mom about what went down. But Diana didn't have any more details. It felt like forever before they arrived, but it was only about 10 minutes since there wasn't much traffic. They were taken to Martin's room in the ER and were shocked by how bad he looked, all wrapped up in bandages and knocked out cold. They were handed some forms to fill out, because apparently grief doesn't exempt you from paperwork. Dallas scooted her chair closer to him. Dad, they were there for like an hour before a guy and a lady in cop uniforms came in. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Officer Gail Stanton and this is my partner Robert Hansen. We were the first ones on the scene. Any updates on how he's doing? Nobody told us anything, Officer Diana replied. Oh, this is my daughter Dallas. We need to ask you a few questions. I know it's not the best time, but it's best to do it ASAP. Do you know what your husband was doing on the street? Man, that night he was at home and we hit the hay around 10 p.m. I didn't even realize he had left until the hospital called. The lady said Officer Stanton. Dallas, can you confirm this? Actually, yes, we were watching a movie on TV that ended at 10, and then we all went to bed. I saw Dad head into the bedroom with Mom. The movie? Something with Keanu Reeves, some action flick that Dad picked. Did you guys have any issues, like money problems or marriage troubles? Nah, just the usual stuff that all married couples go through. Didn't have any issues at all, I just don't get why he went out without telling me. Were the folks in the other car okay? That's what I'm asking, Mrs. Miller. It was just a one-car crash, and two people saw your husband's car driving normally before it suddenly sped up and smashed into that big oak tree at the intersection of Highways 121 and 288. There weren't any tire marks on the road, and nobody saw brake lights. Diana and Dallas glanced at the cops as they realized what they were implying. Are you saying my husband did this on purpose, like he was trying to off himself? We gotta check the car for any mechanical issues and definitely talk to your husband when he wakes up. It's one of the things we're looking into. Are you sure there weren't any issues with the car that you know of? I love my husband and our marriage is great. I can't think of any problems. It was probably just him losing control. I fell asleep, it was super late already. I'm pretty sure Diana had a good reason. She started crying and couldn't even finish her sentence. Officer Stanton put one of her cards on the table and told them to call if they remembered anything else, then he left the hospital. Dallas closed the door to Martin's room. You didn't tell them, did you? No, Dallas, I didn't, her mother replied. After she stopped crying, she said, it's none of their business and it's not relevant. Your father didn't have a problem with it, maybe he'll say something when they come back. Chat with him and then we'll figure it out. The next few days dragged on as Martin was out cold in the hospital. Diana and Dallas were there as much as they could be, always sticking together to make sure he wasn't left alone. Diana even reached out to Martin's boss to let him know about the situation and that he wouldn't be able to come into work. She made sure not to mention anything that might suggest it was a suicide attempt. The accident went down on Saturday night and Martin finally started coming to. By Wednesday morning, Martin was starting to wake up. By noon, his eyes were open, but he could only look around. Diana was there and saw his eyes open, so she went to his bed to comfort him and tell him everything would be okay. A few seconds later, a nurse rushed in because something on the monitors showed that the patient had woken up. Diana went back to her seat to let the nurse do her thing, and then more doctors came in to check on Martin. Diana took the chance to step outside and call Dallas to let her know that her dad was awake. Dallas didn't pick up, so she left a voicemail. Soon, most of the medical stuff was taken out. Martin's left arm was broken, but he's right-handed so it shouldn't be a big deal. His throat was sore from the tube, so they gave him a whiteboard to communicate. The nurse read the message and asked if he was sure. Martin nodded. The nurse hurried out to the hallway while the tests kept going. Mrs. Miller, I gotta tell you, your husband doesn't want you around. Let me back in the room with my husband and daughter. I have every right to be there with him. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller, but the patient's needs come first. Just let me talk to him and we'll figure things out. Diana tried to push past the nurse but couldn't get any closer, so she started yelling, Martin. Martin, please talk to me. What's going on, Martin? Martin. Mrs. Miller, please stop yelling. You're disturbing the other patients. You can wait outside if you want, but if we catch you trying to sneak back in. If you're loud in the room, we'll kick you out of the building. Do you understand me? Yeah, sure. Diana had to come. Dallas finally made it to the hospital 45 minutes later. She found her mom sitting outside the room. Mom, why are you here? Dad said we can't go in the room. I get why he banned you, but why me? What the hell? And why did it take you so long to get here? I just woke up when Bradley came to check on me. We kinda, had sex. Your man should have been here for your dad instead of me. Sorry Mom, but he was out cold when I split from Dallas, answered in a tone that made it clear she wasn't sorry. It was hella stressful and I needed to chill. It worked out pretty good though. When you get a chance, you should give him a ring too. I ain't gonna do it. Let's not get into it right now, it's rude. The irony of it all made Dallas chuckle. There was a knock on the door, followed by a tall, hot brunette in some killer outfit. She was all professional and stuff, even though she wasn't a doctor. Her badge said she worked there. Morning, Mr. Miller. I'm Dr. Lasser, one of the hospital's mental health experts. How you feeling? Probably as good as you can be, I guess. It's been 9 days since the accident. He can talk again, and the whiteboard is history. He's wondering when he can leave, but no one gives him a straight answer. The hospital wanted me to chat with you. It's cool, I can choose. But you can't go back home if you don't want to. All right, mate, I gotta let you go soon, said the psychiatrist with a confused smile on her face. Let's get started then. Dr. Lasser pulled up a chair next to the bed and sat down, crossing her legs. It took her a few minutes to look through the papers. So, you were brought in about a week ago after crashing into a tree. I also see that you banned your wife and daughter from visiting you, and I have a feeling that's related somehow, she said. I see, Martin replied. He cheated on me, which sucks. It's pretty common nowadays, but usually doesn't lead to such a big reaction. Is there more to this? Martin stayed quiet for a few minutes. He really didn't want to discuss it, especially with a pretty lady. He wished there was an older guy he could talk to. Dr. Lasser waited patiently. She was used to waiting for people to open up. Finally, Martin spoke up. I've been dealing with depression, he confessed. I never got diagnosed or anything. I wasn't feeling great, I was kind of down about something specific or just in general. I think I couldn't get it up for over a year after the last accident. Yeah, she probably had all my medical info and just wanted to hear me say it. It wasn't really an accident though. I was in the back seat, my boss was in the front passenger seat, and his boss was driving. We got rear-ended with no airbags or major damage, but I wasn't ready for that. Yo, I banged my head on the seat in front of me. I think that's why the report says I got a hit and a mild concussion. My doctors couldn't figure it out, none of the meds worked. They did a bunch of tests, some more than once, and the best they could come up with was that something happened and part of my brain got messed up, so I couldn't get it up. That's probably why my wife got fed up with our sex life and ended up cheating on me. It just wore on and on from there. Alright, so basically, you were feeling down and that led to what happened that evening. How long was it before your wife decided to do that? About 7 or 8 months, I think. We tried to fix things in other ways, you know, with some outside help. Yeah, I get it, Mr. Miller. I've had sex before, of course. Sorry, I just feel a bit uncomfortable. Anyway, at first everything was good and we hoped that my performance would improve. We even talked about spending the whole weekend in bed, really getting into it. Hey, so this crazy thing happened. My wife was cheating on me for a while, and I found out when I came home early from work one day. Can you believe it? She was with her lover at our house, and to top it off, my daughter and her boyfriend were there too. It was a total mess. But thankfully, they weren't all doing it together. My wife and her lover were in the bedroom, and my daughter and her boyfriend were in the living room. Can you believe that? My wife was cheating on me, and my daughter knew about it and seemed to be okay with it, which is why your daughter got banned too. And in case I didn't mention it before, Bill is Brad's father. We knew him before because he is the father of our daughter's boyfriend. I later found out that it was our daughter who actually suggested Bill to her mother. This was another shock. Did you confront them? Well, not really. Maybe if Dallas wasn't there, I would have bumped into Diana, but I had already seen enough of my daughter's betrayal. So, I was talking to her about anatomy and then I left. The explanation didn't go as I thought it would. She apologized for knowing about it, but she made it clear that if I couldn't take care of her, she would find someone else. She preferred having a full-time partner instead of waiting around for me to find someone new. Bill was single and had similar needs, so he was her choice. What could I do? She was right about me not being able to have sex, it wasn't her fault. So, she did what she had to do. What if, hypothetically, I asked you beforehand if you'd be cool with it, you know. I really thought about it a lot. Part of me wanted to say yes because I love her and want her to be happy. But deep down, I know I wouldn't be happy with that. We made vows, we made promises, and one of them was to be there for each other through sickness and health. I couldn't do that to her, so I wouldn't want her to do that to me either. But obviously, she kept seeing him. And now that I know about it, she's not even trying to hide it anymore. I don't know if she's doing it more now or what. Man, they've been doing it a lot lately. I don't know how much they did it before, but now they're going to the store on weekends and spending time with Bill. It must have been tough, like really tough. I felt like I couldn't do anything. She deserved to have a sex life, but I couldn't give it to her and it was eating me up inside. Can you tell me about the night of the accident when the whole family saw it happen? I was watching a movie on TV and I just kept all my emotional pain to myself. I guess I thought it was a mistake, but I didn't want to bother Diana or Dallas. They kissed and hugged goodnight, while I just got a good night from Dallas. That's when it hit me that she had lost all respect for me as a dad and a man. Can't really blame her, since I didn't respect myself either. I got ready for bed like always, Diana did the same. It was all just the same routine every night. I waited until Diana was asleep, then got dressed and I grabbed my wallet and keys, then headed upstairs to check on Dallas. She was fast asleep. I blew her a kiss and said goodbye before hopping into my car. I knew there were airbags in there, but I figured it wouldn't matter if I hit something hard enough. I didn't really have a plan, so I just drove around aimlessly in the area. I remembered the big oak tree and drove past it for the first time, noticing there were no obstacles in the way. I circled back around and headed straight for it. We both sat in silence. After a few minutes of just letting the story sink in, the doctor finally spoke. "Mr. Miller, I gotta thank you for being so open and honest with me. That's a rare thing. I'm gonna let you rest a bit and mull over everything you've shared with me. Can I swing by tomorrow?" "I ain't going nowhere," he said sarcastically. They shook hands and Dr. Lacier left the room. Martin grabbed his phone, which he had left at home that night and Diana had brought to him despite his instructions not to. He replied to a bunch of texts and emails, then told his boss the latest updates. He then shut his eyes and tried to catch some Z's. When Diana got back home, she was trying to keep it together. She felt like Marty was cool with her hanging out with Bill, like he had given her permission as a sign of his love. At first, she thought the incident was just a mistake, but now she wasn't so sure. She started to think maybe the cops were onto something. She was worried her husband might spill the beans about her affair with Bill. The cops didn't bother her after that, probably because adultery isn't illegal. They probably just thought it was a suicide attempt and called it a day. Case closed. But he didn't really care, did he? If so, she couldn't remember it, and besides, she wasn't going to give up sex just because some jerk framed her husband's boss. That wasn't part of the deal she signed up for, and she definitely wasn't going to put up with it. She wasn't on board with it at first, but now that Marty was back home, she was gonna make an effort to be more mindful of his feelings in her relationship with Bill. But there was no way she was gonna give up. The next morning, as promised, Dr. Lassiter came in. Marty noticed the doctor was dressed differently. Unfortunately, little Marty was still keeping to himself. "How you feeling this morning, Mr. Miller?" "Not much different from yesterday, Doc. Ready to go home, but I guess it's up to you." "Well, partially. You're actually being held for 72 hours, so, according to state law, the clock starts ticking from when we chatted yesterday. So, we've got a couple more days at least. Hey, at least the grub here ain't too shabby." They had a good laugh together, an oldie but a goodie, as Dr. Lasser pointed out. "I'm glad to see you're cracking jokes," he said. "Me too," she replied. "It's been a while, like months, since I felt like myself. I used to be a big jokester, to the point where I annoyed Dallas sometimes. Any other dark thoughts lurking in your mind, Doc?" "This ain't it. I've been feeling down for a year now, and more so in the past few months. But now, I ain't feeling it no more. It's turned into anger and disappointment, especially towards Diana and Dallas. Mainly Diana though. But really, I'm mostly disappointed in myself for not speaking up, for not letting my wife know that what she was doing wasn't cool. Are you gonna step up now?" "Definitely. Although I gotta admit, I'm tempted to just call it quits and get a divorce. But I also gotta own up to my part in all this. Tell her to move on from me, but if she agrees to cut ties with Bill, then I'm willing to go to therapy and try to fix our marriage. I gotta say, Mr. Miller, I'm impressed with your persistence. I don't usually see people change their minds so quickly. I had a lot of time to think while I was laid up here before we talked. Thanks for letting me open up about it. It really helped me sort out my thoughts. Well done, Mr. Miller, well done. So, I think I'll wrap things up today. I'll swing by tomorrow for one final chat, but that's it. I don't see why you can't leave on time. I'm excited for it." Diana and Dallas were there to pick him up when he got out. If he wanted to make changes, he needed to act like things were gonna change. The airbags actually worked pretty well, way better than Marty thought. The worst part was the concussion he got, which meant he had to chill and rest in the dark for a while. The TV was off and there was some soft music playing in the background. Wife and daughter were all over him. Everything was good for a little over a week until Diana said she needed to go shopping. "No," Marty said calmly. "What for?" Diana replied, confused. "There are things we need, including some of your healing creams. Make a list for Dallas, she can go." "Why are you dragging me into this, Dad? Besides, I have plans to see Bradley." "Then you have an incentive to finish your shopping quickly, don't you, Diana? Make the list." "This is funny, Martin. You can't just come home and turn everything upside down, Dallas." "Okay, so I make plans to go to the store, and that's it. Do you think I'm stupid, Diana?" "No way, Marty, I would never think that. Why are you even bringing this up?" You think I don't know that these trips to the store are just an excuse to see Bill? I haven't forgotten to actually come home with groceries, Martin. Yeah, it's a good cover, but you've been gone for too long. And not only that, but I can tell by looking at you, in your eyes when you avoid looking at me, in your clothes when they don't seem right, in your makeup. It's obvious. It's always a bit different. At least you got to hang out with Bill for a while, but that's over now. Diana looked shocked, and Dallas started to respect her dad Marty a bit more. Come on, we've talked about this already. I'll try to be more careful from now on. I guess I've been too laid back about my meetings, but I'm not giving up on them. I have the right to have a love life, and I plan on having one. So, our vows didn't mean anything to you. Leave everyone else out of this. Being sick and sticking by each other through thick and thin, that's just part of the deal. But if you keep seeing Bill, I'm out. We need to see a counselor to fix our marriage, or else I'm calling a divorce lawyer on Monday. Don't test me, Martin Miller. I wish I could still have sex with you, but I can't. It's not my fault I can't perform like before. I had nothing to do with the accident that messed everything up. My sex life is done, and I just have to accept it. Listen, it ain't gonna happen, so I'm gonna go hit the shops, hang out with Bill, and take care of myself. If you want to chat about it later tonight, we can do that. But don't even think about trying to control me or tell me what to do without hearing a peep from your husband. Diana stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard the windows shook. The silence was eerie as father and daughter exchanged looks. Marty headed to his room. For the first time ever, Dallas Miller was feeling anxious. Man, Diana was thinking about her family's future and her parents' marriage. Her dad never really stood up to her mom, but nothing too crazy had ever happened between them. She decided to stay out of it and went to go meet up with Bradley. Part of Diana kinda wished Marty wouldn't recover, 'cause she wasn't sure she could ever move on from Bill. Bill was a real aggressive and strong guy. He didn't even stop to think about how his actions affected Ed. Marty, on the other hand, was always so gentle and caring. Marty was just Marty. It was getting dark outside when Dallas got back home. She found her dad chilling in his room, with a dim light coming from the slightly open bathroom door. Turns out, her dad wanted some light but none of the lamps were giving off enough. "Dad," she called out. He didn't turn around at first, but finally noticed her silent tears. "What's up?" he asked, sitting up in bed to face her. He stopped calling her all those cute nicknames after he found out she helped her mom find a new man. Now he's hesitant to do it again, even though she's crying. Dallas walked up to the bed and said, "I'm sorry for what I did, I was just trying to help my mom. She was really upset about what you went through and that you couldn't." Their eyes met for a moment before she trailed off. Bradley's old man has been dealing with the same stuff ever since Mrs. Coyle kicked the bucket. Bradley says his pops is always going on about how much he misses her, especially when he's close by. I thought they could, support each other, you know. I'm sorry to admit, but I never considered how this would impact you. Is that why you did what you did that night? Marty was caught off guard by his daughter's sudden emotional spill. It could have been a trick, but he had to believe her confession at face value. If he was fooled, hurt, or betrayed again, then... All right, I guess I was feeling really down because I couldn't, live up to expectations. Me and my dad looked at each other and shared a quick smile, but that's all in the past now. I'm not going through that again, Deli. I really hope not. I need you. Are you gonna leave your mom? I haven't decided for sure yet, sweetie, but I don't see any other way unless she stops seeing Bill. But don't tell anyone. She needs to change because she wants to, not because she has to. Got it, Dad. I'm heading up to my room. Oh, I broke up with Bradley tonight. Marty tried to hide his smile, he never really liked the guy. But this surprised him because she always seemed to have a crush on him or was in love. Why? Marty asked, interested in this sudden change. Well, Dallas began, then paused to think. Because my dad once told me he wasn't good enough for me, and I finally realized he was right. I finally realized my dad was right about a lot of things. A smile appeared on Marty's face as he understood. Man, his daughter really grew up today. Dallas went up to her dad, gave him a hug and noticed that it was the first hug they had in forever. They let go, smiled, and then Marty saw Dallas quietly leave the room and head upstairs. Before Marty could hear his daughter's bedroom door close, he heard Diana lock her car. The happy vibes he had just felt vanished in a flash. He laid back down, closed his eyes, and a little while later Diana came in. So, she was in the bedroom, then she took a shower. Bills and Marty thought it would be best for her to come back all clean, instead of smelling like sex. "Hey, can you give me a hand with the groceries? Did you actually get any stuff there?" Marty joked as he sat down. "Yeah, Marty, I told you I was going grocery shopping and I did." Marty brought the bags in from the car and dumped them on the counter. He noticed there were no cold foods or frozen stuff. He also found a receipt that showed she had left the store almost 2 hours ago. "First I went shopping, and then I went to see Bill." Turns out, even though Marty knew this was gonna happen, the evidence in front of him stung. After putting his things away, Marty headed to the bedroom without saying another word. He wondered if he should even bring it up again, it just didn't add up. Diana made it crystal clear what she planned to do, so the next move was up to him. Something had to change. "Did you want to chat a bit more?" asked his wife in a tone that implied it wouldn't help. "No, Diana. You've made your decision." Diana's face changed and she looked less serious. She really cared about her husband and didn't want to lose him. He was like her BFF and the one she loved hanging out with the most. She didn't see a problem with taking care of her own needs, especially in this situation, and hoped Marty would come around to the same idea eventually. Diana gave a little nod of agreement and went to her closet to get ready. She had been thinking about getting closer to her husband again, but tonight wasn't the night for that. By the time she got ready for bed, Marty was already knocked out. He was either really asleep or just really good at faking it. The divorce was a mess and Diana was pissed when the papers were filed. Marty was nice enough to send them home and then he made sure to bunk up with Dallas in the guest room upstairs next to Dallas's room. Diana fought tooth and nail against the divorce, hiring a super aggressive lawyer who pulled out all the stops. They even tried to claim Marty was crazy by bringing up a supposed suicide attempt. Marty knew she might pull something like that, so he decided to start counseling the same week the paperwork was filed. The psychologist he saw was legit, and when he confirmed that Marty was no longer a suicide risk, the judge agreed. The battle could have dragged on, but just when Diana was getting too close for comfort, Dallas stepped in. She set her mother straight, reminding her that Diana's needs didn't outweigh the commitments she had made. Life isn't always easy. So, Diana had to suck it up and stand by her man, even though it was hurting her to see him with that other woman. Dallas made it crystal clear that if she kept fighting, it would totally mess up their mother-daughter bond. Feeling all alone with her husband and daughter gone, Diana felt like she had no choice but to give in to the divorce. They had to sell the house, Marty had to pay alimony for a while, and Diana had to find a 2-bedroom apartment close to work so she could start grinding full-time again after 8 months. The divorce was finalized, but it really hit her hard, especially when Bill told her it was over. It seemed like he had been with a few more women while they were still together. Diana lost interest in him once they weren't married anymore. Dallas kept going to college and stayed with both parents, but Diana started playing the victim and kept blaming Marty for the divorce. When Dallas heard her mom say, "If only he were more understanding," she snapped at her and asked if she ever thought about Dad. Marty walked into the room, which was dimly lit. "So I was at this dope club around 10 p.m. on a Friday night, just trying to chill and have a good time. I wanted to grab a few drinks, maybe bust a move on the dance floor. I posted up at the bar and ordered a rum and coke. As I was sipping on my drink, I scoped out the scene and spotted this chick at the other end of the bar. She looked kinda familiar, but I couldn't quite place where I knew her from. She had a half-empty glass of wine in front of her, with long dark brown hair and a dress that was barely covering her boobs. I couldn't help but stare at her. As he walked towards the woman, he remembered her and a small smile creeped onto his face. She looked at him as he got closer. "Dr. Lasser," she said, staring into his eyes and studying his face for a moment. But she didn't seem to recognize him right away. Marty thought maybe he got it wrong. "I'm leaving Dr. Lasser at the hospital. In the real world, I go by Vicky. But I'm afraid you've got me at a loss. It's been a while and I'm sure you talk to a lot of people. Patients are more my thing than great therapists. I'm better at remembering names than faces. Give me a test, Martin Miller." Vicky thought about the name for a moment, and Marty waited patiently for her to give up. He observed her closely, and later he would swear that he could see a light bulb go off in her head. Ah, Mr. Miller, an unfaithful wife and a sudden crash into a tree, if I'm not mistaken. You're not mistaken, and I'm impressed. We only spoke twice, over a year ago, hell, almost 2 years ago. It's all luck. You don't want to come hang with me, Marty? Vicky said as she sat down and signaled for the bartender to top up their drinks. Thanks, I appreciate it. So, what's up with you tonight? Seeing anyone special? Marty asked. I'm giving it a shot, Vicky replied with a twinkle in her eye that made it clear what she meant. Oh really? I could have sworn I saw a big rock on your finger before, Marty teased. Yeah, maybe. It didn't take long for my divorce to go through. I kept wearing my rings to try and convince my ex that he had nothing in common with a 20-year-old cashier. Trying to get one of her friends to join us in bed didn't work out. Oh my God, are they still a thing? This might be a shock, but after my divorce, I stopped caring about Wayne's relationship status. I have no clue. That was a dumb question. Just call me Marty or Martin, anything but Mr. Miller. What did your wife call you, Marty? Can you take me to the dance floor, Martin? The bartender was asked to watch their drinks while they hit the dance floor. They started off with a fast dance, getting into the groove right away. After that, another fast song came on, followed by a slow one. They stayed on the dance floor the whole time, cuddling up to the slow music. Vicky put her arms around Martin's neck as he held her close, and being a guy, he quickly realized she wasn't wearing a bra. They locked eyes for a moment before Vicky. She rested her head on his shoulder and they didn't stop hugging even when the second song started. Martin was completely caught up in the feelings of this gorgeous, sweet-smelling woman. When the song finished, Vicky used the quieter moment to speak up. She whispered in Martin's ear, I'm tired of dancing, but I'm also feeling pretty lonely, if you catch my drift. Martin took her hand and led her back to the bar. Martin paid the bill and told the bartender they didn't want any more drinks. He didn't seem surprised. She got to the club in an Uber, so they hopped in his car and Martin drove them back to his place. He bought Vicky a drink, and then asked her, Hey, how much did you have to drink tonight? It was only my first glass of wine when you came over. She asked him what he meant, because she doesn't let guys take advantage of her when she's drunk. Don't worry about it, Martin, she said. They pulled into his underground parking garage and took the elevator to his floor. Vicky held onto him as they walked. Damn, they'd been waiting all this time and as soon as the door closed they started kissing like crazy. Vicky wasted no time, pulling her dress over her head. Oh my God, Vicky, you look amazing. Thanks, Martin, but are you just gonna stand there and watch? Hell no, let's go to the bedroom then. Martin grabbed her hand and led her down the hallway. Luckily Dallas was out visiting her mom that weekend. I hope you have condoms. Martin had a few in his bedside drawer and he pulled them out, putting them on the nightstand. Finally, after over an hour of amazing sex, Martin and Vicky came to their senses. Martin was lying on his back and Vicky was cuddled up to him on her left side. They weren't quite asleep, but they were in the chill state between being asleep and awake. Martin could feel Vicky lift her head and say, Hey Martin, I just remembered that there was that whole erectile dysfunction thing in this story. Do you remember that? Obviously, that's not an issue anymore. What happened a couple of months after the Oak incident? I started feeling this tingling sensation, you know. It was like when a paralyzed limb starts to wake up. This lasted for a few weeks. Are you still married? What did you tell her? Yeah, we're still technically married, but we've been living apart for weeks. I didn't say anything to her, it's none of her business. But then, over the next few months, I started getting morning wood more often, even during the day. And after about 8 or 9 months, everything was pretty much back to normal. So, what did the doctors say? They didn't really have a solid answer, at least nothing too serious. They did all kinds of tests and scans, compared them to the ones from before when things weren't working, but they couldn't find anything. In the end, they just said it was some weird brain thing. They reckon hitting the tree might have fixed it somehow, but they're not really sure. Maybe it was the tree, or maybe my brain just magically healed itself. Who knows? Well, I guess I'm just lucky then. It's all good, I suppose. Hey, you want to stay over tonight? Are we gonna hook up again in the morning and grab breakfast together? We both passed out, but then Martin had to go and ask Vicky if she's ready for a serious relationship. There was a long awkward silence, and Martin started freaking out, thinking he messed up and scared her off. He half expected her to bounce and ask for a ride home. But it was pretty clear she was into him, and not just because she's hot. She's smart and fun to be around, and Martin liked hanging out with her. That's for sure. They weren't in love yet, but after the divorce, she was the first woman he really considered. Can we discuss this in the morning? Sure. Good night, Vicky. Good night, Martin. Vicky woke up before Martin, and he looked peaceful, so she let him sleep. She used his shower and then went to the kitchen to see what she could whip up for breakfast. Martin's question before bed caught her off guard. It wasn't that she wasn't into him, but she was just focused on having a good time. She kept telling herself for months that she didn't need a man in her life, and in a way, that was true. She had a good job and some awesome friends, so she didn't need a man. But deep down, she really wanted one. But what will a good guy say after she tells him the truth? Martin woke up to the smell of something cooking. He stumbled into the kitchen to see that Vicky had used his shirt from last night and found the apron he kept in his closet. I was going to invite you to breakfast, but it's too late now. You can't. Hey, invite me to lunch, I'm gonna go take a quick shower and breakfast will be ready in 10 minutes. Martin joined Vicky in the kitchen just as she was setting up plates on the table. There was an omelette, a couple of sausages, and a piece of buttered toast. I didn't even know I had sausages, they were in the freezer. I hope it's good to eat. Martin took a bite and said it was delicious. Breakfast itself was pretty quiet, with Martin cleaning the kitchen since Vicky had been nice enough to cook the food. We just talked about random stuff until we finished, and then when we put everything in the dishwasher, he turned to Vicky. He asked, "Are you ready to talk, or mostly listen?" "Vicky, I don't want to make things awkward or get in the way of your business, but if you're only interested in hooking up, then that's fine. You don't owe me anything. I just need to tell you something. Can we do it in the bedroom? I'll feel more comfortable there." They held hands and walked into the bedroom, then sat on the bed facing each other. "Hey Martin, so last night was fun, right? I think you're a cool guy and I'm totally into you. But, there's something I gotta tell you. My ex-husband left me for a younger chick because I can't have kids. He wanted his own biological children and I couldn't give that to him. He didn't want to adopt, he wanted his own offspring. I feel like my ex sees not having kids as a failure, and somehow blames me for it. I have no clue how he's doing post-divorce. I'm in my 40s, with a grown daughter. I wouldn't mind having kids, but it's not a deal breaker. On a brighter note, I'm glad to hear about something else. But I gotta be honest, I wasn't feeling great after the divorce was finalized. I was feeling pretty down on myself, getting older, and losing my husband to a woman half my age. Just so you know, I'm 37 years old. Interested, but there was no way I was gonna ask, they both chuckled a bit. I also felt incomplete, I guess that's the best way to put it. To be honest, I didn't feel like a woman at all. How can you be a woman and not be able to have kids? I know what you're thinking, but that's exactly how I felt at the time. So I decided to prove that I am a woman. And if I couldn't be a woman having kids, then I was gonna be a woman satisfying men, mostly anonymously. There were a lot of them. I called myself. Angela always used to go home with guys whenever she felt like it. This went on for months until I realized it was self-sabotage. I started seeing a therapist, but I still kept doing it, just not as often. Eventually, I reached a point where I could stop. "Isn't that what you were doing last night, Martin?" he asked cautiously. He wasn't trying to judge her, but last night she was definitely on the prowl. "Yeah, I was," she admitted. "I have needs as a woman. I used to go out with anyone who hit me up first, but now I'm more picky about who I hang out with. There were a lot of nights when I ended up going home alone and had to handle everything by myself. I guess I should be grateful I passed the test. Of course, Martin, I love hanging out with you and I'd like to do more, but I gotta be real about my past experiences. I actually checked and thankfully didn't catch anything, which was really lucky. I don't need birth control, but I can get a note from my doctor if you need proof. Assuming you're down to give it a shot, I think we should both get tested and agree to only see each other." Martin sat quietly for a few minutes while Vicky waited anxiously but patiently. Finally, he was ready to speak. Vicky, thank you for being honest. I know it wasn't easy for you. I think I owe you the same. Our situations aren't that different. After my divorce, I was happy I went through with it, but I felt pretty down about my fertility issues. I had no clue what I was gonna do. So, I was with this chick and I was thinking I'd be all by myself. Then my therapist mentioned that as we age, some ladies aren't really into getting it on anymore and prefer cuddles instead. I figured I'd have to find an older woman or wait a bit. But then, I started getting hard again, and even though things seemed back to normal, I wasn't feeling my best. Just like how you feel the need to show you're a woman, I felt the need to prove I'm a man. I used to go out a lot to try and hook up with women, thinking I was some kind of stud. I wasn't picky like you, I hooked up with some questionable ladies. Let's just say I've been around the block a few times. This went on for a while until I got unlucky and got an STD. I had to confess to my doctor that I didn't even know the names of the people I was sleeping with. We sorted everything out, and during therapy, I started to reflect on my actions. It's been a long time since then. So, I hooked up with this chick without a condom, but I'm down to get tested and be exclusive. What do you say, wanna give it a shot? Vicky asked, fluttering her eyelashes and already knowing the answer. I'm game, Martin replied to her rhetorical question. Their condom stash had run out by lunchtime. The inevitable showdown with Diana happened after Martin and Vicky had been seeing each other for about 3 months. Their bond was solid, and Vicky got along great with Martin's buddy Dallas. Martin and Vicky each had their own places, but they were hanging out every night and it looked like they were gonna tie the knot. They hit up a club for older folks with a DJ and a setup that kept the dance floor separate from the tables for some real talk. Martin and Vicky were having a good time chatting and sipping drinks when Martin's smile vanished and he started staring past Vicky. She followed his gaze and saw Martin locking eyes with Diana on the dance floor. Martin's face was blank, but Diana had a sly grin on her face as she made her way to the table. Diana was still salty about the divorce, even though she felt like she didn't do anything wrong, besides maybe being a little too open about her needs and hooking up with another guy when her husband wasn't cutting it. So, when she went up to the table, she wasn't trying to be sweet. Marty, how lovely to see you, Diana said with a smirk. Martin introduced Vicky to his ex-wife Diana with a sarcastic tone. Diana responded bitterly, saying she has heard nothing about Vicky and made it clear that their divorce was final and her life was no longer Martin's concern. Martin subtly hinted that Diana should leave the conversation. Leave them be, Martin. I don't want to ruin your date. But, Vicky, there's something I gotta tell you. What's up? Vicky asked, giving Martin a quick glance before turning back to Diana. You probably shouldn't mess with him. We got divorced because he couldn't handle it anymore. Martin watched Vicky closely, waiting for her response. Vicky tried to hold back a laugh and raised her eyebrows at Martin. Is this true? You never mentioned this, Martin, she said. Martin just shrugged. Diana thought Vicky was playing a game. So, she's got them in her hands, like she messed up Marty's relationship just like he did to her and Bill. She's gonna have fun with this. But her joy didn't last long. Well, that's a relief, 'cause if that thing I was riding on last night was actually working, a boner would have probably finished me off. Diana's smile vanished right away. Vicky and Martin shared a look that kinda made fun of Diana's feeble attempt to break them up. And Diana just seemed lost. Wait, what is she going on about? Hey Marty, you're not actually saying that this thing actually works, are you? It seems like during their rare get-togethers, Dallas didn't clue her mom in on Martin's personal life. Diana played it cool as always, but how is that even possible? Did the doctors find a cure? Martin and Vicky stayed quiet, letting Diana get even more worked up. Come on, Marty, this issue ended my marriage. I think I at least deserve to know what went wrong. The smile faded from Martin's face. First off, Diana, it was your behavior that ended our marriage. It's not my fault that you made the decision to do what you did, not me. And secondly, you don't deserve. We're divorced now, and my personal matters are just that, personal. Come on, Marty, you can blame my decision all you want, and I can't say you're wrong. But I wouldn't have done this if everything was normal, okay Diana? It just happened. The doctors think that whatever the problem was after I had that first accident needed time to recover. If you had been patient and stayed with me through my illness like our vows said we would, things might have been different. Diana was shook when she found out they were still married. She couldn't believe it, thinking, damn, God must really have it out for me. Martin muttered something about vows, but Diana asked what he meant. She tried to play it cool, saying it was nothing. Finally, she told him to leave so they could finish their evening in peace. After thinking for a moment, Diana apologized to Martin, admitting she was wrong and selfish for what she did. I messed up a good marriage by being unfaithful. I'm really sorry, Diana. She walked out not just from their table but also from the club. Martin and Vicky watched her leave until she was out of sight, actually feeling sorry for her. Martin then turned back to Vicky and said, "Let's dance, my love." 6 months later, Martin and Vicky got married. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so that your second half doesn't cheat on you. Stay tuned for the next story because this one is nothing compared to what's coming next if you can handle it. Hey, you better not even try to listen to the next one when you're 18.